Did we just allow the secret to be rebranded to us as the abundance mindset, right? For those of us that remember the secret that came out in 2006, right? And it was just talking about having a positive outlook on life and you think it will happen, right? Those of us that remember that, the abundance mindset is essentially that rebranded, And so throughout this video, I'm going to give us examples of how the abundance mindset fits into context or has context in a society and on a planet with scarce resources, right? A planet with finite resources, a planet where certain things are rare, are scarce. And we're just going to go through it. I'm going to give us some examples. I'm going to go through a bit of history. I'm going to give us some names and certain things to think about. And let's start off with water, right? The most abundant resource on the planet, 70% of the planet is water. But only 3% of that water is actually fresh water. And of that fresh water, 0.1010% of it is fresh lakes, right? That's how rare fresh lakes are. And even when it comes to the fresh water in general, that 3% that's fresh water, much of that is glaciers and what's the water trapped in the ice in the polar ice caps, North and South Pole. So that should give us an idea about abundance mindset when you're looking at fresh water, right? Okay, let's use an example. Let's use automobiles as an example. Let's use cars. So the Toyota Corolla in 2006 sold 390,000, just about 390,000. Even during COVID in 2020, the Toyota Corolla sold 240,000. Both of those numbers are in America alone. That's not even globally. Another car that sold a lot, the Honda Civic. The Honda Civic sold 261,000 in America during COVID-19 2020. In 2017, the Honda Civic sold 377,000. That's how abundant that car is. Now let's compare that to the Bugatti Veyron. Many of us remember the song, I Woke Up in a New Bugatti, right? And how many of your favorite artists and your favorite entertainers we would see coming out of their new Bugatti. How many of us knew how rare that car was, right? Between 2005 and 2015, the Bugatti Veyron, which is the one all your favorite rappers were really talking about, they don't know anything about the older Bugattis, the EB110 and the older Bugattis from the 20th century. Your favorite sports car from 2005 to 2015 only sold 450. Not 450,000, not 4,500, 450 in 10 years. That's all the variations of the Bugatti Veyron. The Bugatti Chiron, which is the Bugatti Veyron's replacement, that's the car that went 304 miles an hour. It broke the 300 mile an hour barrier recently, about 2-3 years ago, right? They're only going to make 30 examples of that. Now, the Chiron in general, they're going to make 500. That's supposed to be 500 produced. But the particular example that broke the 300 mile an hour barrier, 30. Let's bring it back down home to a car we see a little bit more often. The Dodge Charger, right? The Dodge Charger sold just about 130 in 2019 and 2019. Now, many of us are talking about Hellcats. You know how many Hellcats sold in 2019? I'm going to let y'all guess. I'm going to give y'all 2 seconds. 2019, 2,300 Hellcats, Charger Hellcats sold in America. 2,300. Now, for many of us, we would swear we see Hellcats everywhere. You hear that supercharger whine everywhere. Nope, 2,300 in 2019. Let's keep on going. Let's keep on using different things as an example. On the planet, there are 1,864 pandas. That's it. It doesn't even crack the 2,000 mark. You know how many ants there are on the planet? Estimated 1 million billion ants. So a billion, a million times. How many human beings are there on the planet? 7.8 billion, so almost 8 billion. let's let's talk about something many of us care about more: money. How many Americans, how many American workers, better yet, make $100,000 a year or more? As of 2021, 9%. 9% of American earners make $100,000 a year or more. But here's where we get into some very sticky information, right? That's American earners. That's not all Americans. Out of all Americans, from infants to elderly, black and white, women and men, right? 5.4% of Americans make $100,000 a year or more. So essentially 5.5%. So that means if you just went around America just randomly picking people from various races, various backgrounds, from children to adults, 5.5 people out of 100 people would be making $100,000 a year or more. We want to talk about abundance mindset in context of that. An abundance mindset, and this is just me editorializing now, an abundance mindset comes off like an opiate. It comes off like a suppressant, because what it really is our society not wanting to deal with the pyramid scheme, the inequality in the system. So we sell people on essentially self-help, right? And it's not, an abundance mindset is not necessarily an opiate, like religion is an opiate of the weak. It's an opiate to keep people from revolting, because we're afraid of strong people realizing that they've been tricked and they've been had and they've been gaslighted. And so we sell them on do for self, on rugged individuality, right? Like Samuel Smiles did in 1959 with his book called Self-Help, right? And we're going to go through some of the authors and some of the people that have pushed this self-help notion over the past couple centuries, because they feared, really they feared the masses coming together and overthrowing whatever pyramid scheme they were living under, right? And there will be an occasional person that, like a rose cracking through the concrete, there will be an occasional person that goes from abject poverty to uber wealthy. It happens. And then the system then uses that one person as a way to legitimize itself. Look, it can happen. Now, let's go through certain things, right? 15 years ago, in 2006, a Citigroup memo supposedly leaked, that the U.S. is no longer a democracy and had become a plutonomy, a society controlled by and for the top 1%. The U.S. top 1% has more wealth than the bottom 95%. The top 1% has essentially become a new aristocracy. Now, while they're selling you on do for self and rugged individuality, the top 1% actually knows that they have the system rigged in their favor. And in that memo, they also talk about how the only thing they really lament is the fact that it's one person, one vote in America. They have all the wealth to skew the system the way they want. The only problem is that one person, one vote makes it seem as if their power is illegitimate, because their power is illegitimate, right? So let's keep on going through certain things. A lot of our idea of self-help also come from Dale Carnegie with his book, How to Win with Friends and Influence People. That book came out in 1936, and it was part of a new wave of new thought, right? This is, towards the latter end, or towards maybe the middle of the Great Depression. And actually there's some literature on that. Self-help really comes in vogue when people are experiencing economic instability, right? So let's keep on going, because there's more things to say about this. The same thing happened during the stock market crash, so I mentioned that earlier. When economic hardship hits this hard, when the future seems this uncertain and this precarious, people do not blame the economic landscape or the lack of government. People tend to blame themselves, especially the insecure middle class. And that's a paraphrase of Stephen Watts, who's a biographer and covered Dale Carnegie's life, right? So that's the time we're living in. When there's economic hardship and it hits this hard, people tend not to blame the system. They blame themselves, right? But the people that are operating at the very top level of the system know that it's rigged in their favor. That's why I brought up Citigroup before. They talk about this amongst themselves. And eventually, they either fear for their lives so much that they start to pull certain levers and pull and press on certain buttons in this society to alleviate some of that pain, some of that anguish. Because when they don't, you get a French Revolution. And so the fear is that we don't want to make it too bad where we get a French Revolution, but we want to hoard our wealth and influence the entire system. Where's the line is the question. And I would argue we've reached the line. That's where the whole abundance mindset is coming from. Let's continue. During the Great Depression, people would rather reinforce basic institutions instead of advocating for revolutionary action, revolutionary agitation, right? So once again, even lower middle class, working poor, working class people, they would rather reinforce some of the institutions that used to work for them than to go about some revolutionary act, right? And this has been happening time and time again throughout the Industrial Revolution. Now the problem is the change drags you kicking and screaming regardless, and some of your institutions crack and break and shatter. Right? And there's some literature on that also. Adults need to be told the world is changing and you will not be exempt from the change. You will not be exempt from feeling the change. And that's really what this self-help is about, and this abundance mindset and The Secret and all of that literature and entertainment is about. Let's keep on going. In the early and late 19th centuries, so the 1800s, Britain was trying to get rid of its low literacy rate, which these institutions were funded by the middle class, so middle class sponsors, who also used these institutes as a way of imposing their values on the working class. Now, fast forward to the 21st century, what we have now is uber wealthy people imposing their will on the working class, on the middle class, on the working poor, and the abject poor. And they're imposing their will through entertainment and through education. This is where you get the abundance mindset from people that only make $35,000 a year, and throughout their life, they're never going to make more than 45. But yet they still buy into this abundance mindset, right? Because the system is enforcing that on you. The last thing they want is for you and a bunch of other people to come together and demand some type of equal share of the wealth, which, by the way, was also part of the Citigroup memo, right? So that's all Mr. Z has to say. The abundance mindset in context of the system that we actually live in, it keeps people in a sedate position, right? And all of that is about keeping you from doing what most people fear, including, and it's in the interesting part is some of the people that are helping to sedate you are also people that are in the same financial hardship as you. They just don't realize that they're doing the bidding of the elite because they've bought in. They don't think the system is a pyramid scheme. Meanwhile, the elite that created the pyramid scheme know it's a pyramid scheme. That's what the Citibank memo is about. And there's been other memo leaks from different banks and different institutions that echo similar sentiments. The system is rigged. We rigged it. We know it's rigged. We got to keep it rigged. We got to keep people from unionizing. We got to keep people from talking about a certain different economic paradigm. We got to keep people striving in this narrow prescribed way. This is their fear. And an abundance mindset does not change that. One or two people will make it through the cracks, while the masses of us continue to reinforce this abundance mindset and run right into the wall. That is, quite frankly, certain things are scarce and resources are scarce, and we live in a society where money is king, and the wealthy are not only hoarding opportunities with wealth, they're hoarding dreams. There's a book that came out a few years ago, maybe a decade ago or so, that was called Dream Hoarders. And that's what it was about. The top 20% hoarding all the dreams and then locking the door behind them. But it's even worse. The top 1% is hoarding all the wealth before you can even get to the dreams. And not only are they locking the door behind them and rigging the game, they're then selling you on do for self and an abundance mindset and The Secret and self-help. And that's all an abundance mindset is. So I'm coming to an end. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. And tell Mr. Z, did I go too far? Is this just doom and gloom? Or is there some credence to what I said? Is there some validity to what I'm saying? And what do you think the solutions are? I think the solution is telling people the truth and letting adult human beings do what adult human beings do with the information. I do not believe in holding and hiding the information and suppressing the information and then propagandizing adults to think a certain way. No, tell people the truth, tell them what they live, and then allow them to move about society with that information and do what they must. And I'll pause right there. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Y'all have a good day. Peace.